In the cold silence of a dead war moon, deep beneath broken steel and dust, a pod hummed softly. Inside it, frozen in time, was a man, a soldier. His name was Commander Elias Varkos, the last of the Terran warhounds. He had been asleep for over 50 years. The pod unlocked with a hiss. Steam escaped into the dark. Slowly, Elias opened his eyes. His body hurt. His muscles were stiff, but his mind was sharp. He remembered everything: the final battle, the explosion, the mission to save Ganymede Prime. He also remembered that he died, or at least he was supposed to. Elias sat up. Around him were alien machines. They glowed with blue light and moved like insects. The air was different. It smelled like chemicals and metal. He was not on Earth. He was not even in Terran space. Suddenly, the walls opened. Creatures stepped inside, tall, insect-like beings with sharp legs and glowing green eyes. They looked at him like a prize, like a weapon. One of them stepped forward. Its voice was cold and soft, like wind over bones. "You are awake, human. The Queen will be pleased." Elias said nothing. He just stared. His eyes were empty, unreadable. They brought him to a chamber filled with strange lights and humming wires. More creatures stood around him, poking, scanning, watching. One of them placed a black crystal on his forehead. A sharp pain entered his skull. It felt like fire crawling through his brain. But Elias did not scream. He gritted his teeth and stayed silent. In the heart of the Kasari Dominion, emotions were tools. Minds could be read. Memories could be copied. The crystal was a neural bonding device. It connected thoughts and feelings used by the Kasari Queen to control her subjects and understand her enemies. But something strange happened. The crystal cracked. The machines around him blinked in confusion. The alien scientists backed away. One of them spoke in their sharp, clicking language. "His mind, it is too strong, too chaotic." They tried again with a stronger device. It exploded. The room fell silent. Far away, in a golden chamber surrounded by 1,000 glowing eggs, Queen Arixa, ruler of the Kasari, felt the shock through the hive network. Her link to the experiment had failed. Her scouts had been mentally destroyed. That had never happened before. She stood slowly, her long limbs unfolding like a spider. Her mind reached out, touching her servants. "Bring the human to me. I will see him myself." Elias was placed in a glass cell filled with gas. The gas made most creatures sleepy, easy to control. But not him. He sat in the middle of the room, legs crossed, eyes closed. He was waiting. Arixa entered. Her body was tall, beautiful in a terrifying way. Shiny black shell, silver markings, and 6 eyes that glowed with power. She stepped toward the glass, curious. "You are not what I expected, Terran." Elias looked up. "You tried to break into my head," he said calmly. "Rude." The Queen tilted her head. "You are alone. Your people are gone. You have no army, no fleet. Why resist?" He smiled, just a little. "Because I'm human. We don't stop just because we're outnumbered." Arixa narrowed her eyes. "You were made in war, a weapon. But your mind is not just rage. It is fire, cold and focused. You are dangerous." Elias stood up. "Now you get it." Over the next few days, the Kasari tried everything. They used simulations to trap Elias's mind. They showed him memories of Earth, of lost friends, of the war. They tried fear, they tried kindness. Nothing worked. Each time they failed, Elias learned more. He watched the guards. He learned their patterns. He memorized the layout of the ship. He spoke little, but his mind never stopped working. They thought he was caged. But Elias was planning. 1. Night cycle. Something changed. One of the guards entered the chamber carrying a tray of food. The moment the shield dropped, Elias moved. Fast as lightning, he struck with a hidden shard of metal he had sharpened from his cell's bench. The guard fell. Elias didn't kill him. He didn't need to. He only needed one thing: the gland behind the creature's ear. It was a biological ID chip. With it, Elias walked out of the chamber like a ghost. He was loose. As alarms rang across the ship, Queen Erixa stood at her throne. She was angry, but deep down, something else stirred. Not just fear, respect. She had bonded with hundreds of minds, broken thousands, conquered worlds with ease. But this one human refused to kneel. She had to know more. "Let him run," she ordered. "Let him show us what makes his kind so dangerous." Elias moved like smoke through the halls. He disabled cameras, rewired doors, and left false trails. He didn't just want to escape. He wanted to see the heart of the hive, and he wanted them to see what one human could do. Elias moved through the dark halls of the alien dreadnought Womb of Silence like a shadow. The giant ship floated through space, silent and cold. But inside, alarms echoed. Red lights flashed. Kasari soldiers ran through tunnels, searching. But none of them could find the human. He had vanished. The gland he took from the guard gave him access to certain doors and systems. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Elias moved carefully, avoiding cameras, sneaking past patrols. He didn't run, he stalked. He didn't just want to escape, he wanted to learn. And then, he wanted to bring the whole ship down. In a command center filled with glowing symbols and clicking voices, the Kasari officers argued. "He is just one," hissed a captain. "One," replied another, "who has killed 3 patrols, stolen supplies, and hacked into a drone bay." Queen Erixa watched the argument with cold eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The hive felt her thoughts. All grew silent when she raised one hand. "He is not just a human," she said. "He is a warhound." Those words meant something. The Kasari remembered the Ganymede Prime battle, the stories of how one human commander destroyed an entire armada, how he used traps, gravity shifts, and his own blood to win. Now that same man was on her ship. "Find him," she said, "but do not kill him. Not yet." Meanwhile, Elias found what he was looking for. He stood in a control chamber for the neural spire, the tower that connected the Queen's mind to the ship and her soldiers. This was the heart of the hive, where thoughts flowed like electricity. If he could break the signal here, he could do something much bigger than escape. He could start a rebellion. Using stolen tools and his own sharp mind, Elias began hacking into the spire. But he didn't use Terran code. No, he learned from the aliens themselves. During his capture, he had studied their language, their tech, their logic. Now, he used their own systems against them. He sent out a new kind of signal. Not in words, but in the Kasari's pheromone code, a chemical language only the hive understood. But Elias had learned it, and he had changed it. He sent out a whisper. "You are not slaves. You are alive." The signal spread like wildfire. Low-ranking drones paused. Their minds flickered. Confusion, doubt. Some stopped working. Others questioned their orders for the first time in their lives. The Queen felt it at once, a sharp pain in her mind, 1,000 tiny voices, no longer following, no longer obeying. She screamed, not in sound, but through the hive link. Her control was breaking. "Find him now." Elias moved again. The moment the signal was out, he knew time was short. They would hunt harder now. But that was fine. He wanted them angry. Angry soldiers made mistakes. He ducked into a cargo shaft. A patrol passed by, too loud, too fast. He waited, then slipped behind them, silent as smoke. In his hand, he held a device made from stolen parts. A bomb, but not to kill. It would knock out hive-link signals for 30 seconds. Enough to break a squad's focus. Enough to win a fight. He set the charge and waited. When the Kasari squad came near, Elias threw the device and ducked. It exploded with a loud pulse of white light. The soldiers froze, disconnected from the hive. For those few seconds, they were alone, confused, terrified. Elias struck. He didn't kill all of them, just enough to leave a message. One survivor crawled back to the Queen's chamber, covered in blood and shaking. "He fights like nothing we have seen," the drone gasped. "He sees us before we see him. He moves like death." Queen Erixa did not speak, but inside she felt something she had not felt in years: fear. She called her high mind, a council of her oldest and strongest warriors. Their shells were dark and thick. Their minds were deep and loyal. She showed them Elias's path through the ship. "Why does he not flee?" one asked. "Because he is not afraid," Erixa answered. "He is planning something." "What do you want us to do?" "You will not catch him with claws or traps. You will speak to him, offer him what he cannot ignore." Later, Elias found a small chamber, open and empty. On a table sat a message device deliberately placed. He knew it was bait, but he checked it anyway. A voice spoke. It was the Queen. "Elias Varkos, you have no army, no allies, no way home, but you are strong. I offer you a new purpose. Bond with me. Join the hive. Not as a slave, but as a general." Elias stared at the screen. Then he laughed. A quiet, hard laugh. "You don't get it," he whispered. "I'm not looking for a new queen." He smashed the device under his boot. Back in her chamber, Queen Erixa felt the message end. The rejection burned in her mind. "He refuses peace," said one drone. "No," she said slowly. "He refuses chains, even if they shine like gold." Her mind reached across the ship. She ordered a full lockdown. No more warnings, no more tricks. "If he will not be my ally," she said, "then he must be my equal, or my enemy." And she feared which one he truly was. Somewhere deep in the ship, Elias climbed into a maintenance tunnel. The glow of alien lights flickered behind him. He checked the small map he had drawn from memory. He marked another path. He was close. Close. To the Queen's throne. He didn't want to rule. He didn't want revenge. He wanted them to remember one thing. Humans don't break. They burn. And sometimes, fire is what sets others free. Elias moved deeper into the alien ship, his path lit only by the soft green glow of Kasari lights. The air was warmer here, thick with pheromones. He had entered the central hive zone, the true heart of the dreadnought. Every step forward brought him closer to Queen Erixa, but Elias was not just hunting. He was still sending signals through the Spire system, messages in the Kasari chemical code, telling drones to think, to doubt, to feel. Messages that whispered, "You are more than tools. You can choose." And across the massive ship, some drones were beginning to listen. In one of the lower hive chambers, two young Kasari soldiers paused during patrol. One of them turned to the other. "Why do we search for one human?" he asked. "Because the Queen commands it," the other replied. "But why does she fear him?" They didn't speak further, but for the first time, they didn't march as quickly. The first spark of hesitation had been lit. Queen Erixa stood on her throne platform, looking out at her inner circle. Her thoughts were sharp, angry, uneasy. Elias Varkos had become more than a prisoner. He was now a symbol, and symbols were dangerous. She spoke through the hive link, sending mental commands across the ship. "Lock the Spire," she ordered. "Block his messages. Bring him to me, dead or alive." But her order reached only part of the hive. Some drones received the command and obeyed. Others did not. Elias climbed through a vertical shaft, arms aching, mind focused. His escape plan was ready, but he had decided on something more. If he left now, the Kasari would recover. The Queen would erase all the doubt he had planted. He couldn't allow that. He needed to show the hive something they couldn't unsee. Finally, he reached the nerve hall, the sacred area just below the Queen's throne. No outsiders were allowed here. It was where the Queen's thoughts flowed directly into the ship and her people. Elias placed a small pulse bomb at the base of the throne spine. It wouldn't destroy the ship, but it would temporarily cut off the Queen's control. He had one chance. Before he could move, 3 elite guards entered. Their bodies were larger, armor stronger, and minds sharper. They had no fear, but neither did Elias. The first charged. Elias ducked, rolled, and used the guard's own spear against him, stabbing upward through a weak point in the armor. The second guard fired a plasma net, but Elias jumped through it, taking a burn to the side, and slammed a shock rod into the creature's face. The third hesitated. Elias didn't kill him. He held out his hand and spoke calmly. "You don't have to follow orders anymore." The guard stood frozen. For a moment, something passed between them. Then the alien stepped back and let Elias go. From her throne above, Queen Orixa felt the loss of connection. One of her own guards had disobeyed. Her voice echoed across the throne chamber. "Enough. I will face him myself." Moments later, Elias walked into the great throne hall, its walls glowing with shifting light. The Queen stood tall at the far end, her 6 eyes locked on him. "You cause chaos wherever you go," she said. "I bring freedom," Elias replied. "You bring war. Only to those who chain others." Orixa stepped down from her throne. "You are one man. You will fall." Elias tapped a small device in his hand. "Not today." The pulse bomb exploded. A wave of energy swept through the chamber. The hive link snapped like a broken string. For the first time in her life, Queen Orixa stood alone. She screamed, her mind lashing out, but no voices answered. No soldiers moved. Drones across the ship froze, unsure what to do. Elias raised his voice. "Look at her now, alone, afraid, weak without control." Some drones turned toward him. Others looked at their queen with uncertain eyes. Orixa's voice trembled, not with fear but something deeper. "You are changing them." "No," Elias said. "They're changing themselves. I just lit the spark." Suddenly, another group of soldiers burst in, drones who had chosen to follow Elias's message. They didn't attack. They stood still, watching, waiting. Orixa looked at them, and something broke in her heart. Her rule, built on absolute command, was cracking. Elias stepped forward, blood still dripping from his side wound, eyes burning with quiet fire. "You wanted to bond with me, Queen, to make me part of your hive." "Yes," she whispered. "But I couldn't. Now you know why." She lowered her weapons. The room fell silent. Across the ship, drones began to speak to each other in ways they never had before, asking, wondering, choosing. The rebellion had begun not with fire, but with thought, and all because of one human, Queen. Orixa sat slowly on the edge of her throne. "If I surrender, what happens to us?" "You survive," Elias said, "but not as rulers, as equals." She looked up at him. "You are not like others." He smiled faintly. "That's what humans do. We break the rules." For the first time in its long history, the womb of silence was quiet. No orders came from the hive link. No war cries echoed in the halls. The soldiers waited. The workers paused. Even the ship's walls, which usually buzzed with energy, seemed still. In the throne room, Elias Varko stood tall, his uniform torn, his side bleeding. Across from him sat Queen Orixa, no longer glowing with power but quiet, thinking. Elias had done what no one believed possible. He broke the hive. Orixa touched her head slowly. The silence inside her mind was strange, almost painful. For hundreds of years, she had ruled by connection. Every thought, every command spread instantly across the Kasari. She had never been alone. Now she was. Her 6 eyes studied the human who caused this. "They will not follow me now," she said quietly. Elias looked around the room. Dozens of drones stood near the walls. Some held weapons, but none raised them. Their eyes were not angry. They were curious. Then lead them in a new way, he said. I don't know how. Start by giving them a choice. In the lower levels of the ship, more Kasari drones began speaking in hushed voices. Some wanted to stay loyal to the Queen. Others felt something changing inside them. Some were afraid, but others, for the first time in their lives, felt something else. Hope. Elias was escorted to a recovery chamber by 2 rebel drones. They carried no weapons and kept their distance, unsure how to treat him. Elias, tired but alert, patched his wound with a basic medkit and then leaned back against the cold metal wall. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. His mind was still at war. Meanwhile, Arixa sat in the center of her throne chamber, now surrounded by silence. Her high captains had not returned. Her council had not spoken since the hive link broke. She was alone with her own thoughts, a feeling she had never experienced before. She hated it, but part of her also understood it. She had looked into Elias's mind and seen something terrible and powerful. A force that did not come from numbers or weapons, conviction. She had ruled with unity, he fought with belief, and somehow, his fire had spread into her hive. By the next day, the ship was split. One, half still, wanted the Queen's command back. The other followed a new path, no hive link, no control, just individual minds working together. Elias walked through a corridor filled with both groups. Tension was high. One spark could start a war. So he spoke. You don't need to fight each other. You're not enemies. A soldier stepped forward. We need direction. We are born to follow. Then choose your leaders. Don't let one mind rule all. Make decisions together. Another drone hissed. That is chaos. Elias looked him in the eye. No, he said. That's freedom. Back in the throne room, Queen Arixa received a message. One of her generals had refused to reconnect to the hive link after the pulse bomb effect ended. Another shock. Then another. More and more minds choosing silence over connection. Her fear deepened, but it was not fear of Elias anymore. It was fear of change. She looked at a mirror in her private chamber, seeing herself without the glow of control, without the aura of the Queen, and she whispered to her reflection, What am I now? A meeting was called. For the first time in history, a council of free minds gathered on a Kasari ship. Elias stood on one side. Arixa sat across from him. Between them were drones, soldiers, engineers, workers, even younglings. Elias spoke first. This doesn't have to end in war. The galaxy is watching. You can be something new. Arixa's voice was soft but clear. You destroyed our order. No. I gave you the choice to keep it, or build something better. And if we fall? Then you fall with your heads high, not like machines, but as a people. There was silence. Then one drone, a small worker with weak legs, stepped forward. I choose to think. Another followed, then another. One by one, they walked toward Elias's side, not as soldiers, but as individuals. Arixa watched, heart heavy. Then she stood. I was a god to them, she said, and now they no longer bow. Elias didn't smile. He only nodded. Then maybe it's time gods became something else. The next few hours were filled with work, cutting hive links, reprogramming systems, and organizing the ship without one central mind. Drones formed small groups, elected leaders, and chose roles. It was slow. It was hard. But it was happening. Later, in a quiet chamber, Arixa asked to speak with Elias alone. They sat across from each other, no guards, no weapons. I used to think bonding with you would make me stronger, she said. And now I see. You are strong because no one owns your will, not even your people. Elias leaned forward slightly. The strongest bond is one built by choice, not control. She looked down at her hands. I was born in the center of the hive. My fate was chosen before I was hatched. I never thought about what I wanted. So what do you want now? A long pause. Then she said, very quietly, to be free. For the first time, Elias offered her his hand, not in battle but in peace. Then walk beside us, not as queen, as someone new. She took it, and for the first time in her life, Queen Eryxa smiled, not with power, but with peace. Weeks had passed since the silence. The womb of silence, once a ship of fear and obedience, now buzzed with new life. There were no more forced hive links, no more orders sent through mind control. The halls were filled with quiet voices, new thoughts, and strange emotions the Kasari had never known before. And it all started with one human. Elias Varkos, the last warhound, had not only broken the hive, he had given it a soul. Queen Eryxa no longer sat on her throne. She had stepped down from her place of power. The throne chamber had become a council room where different Kasari, drones, workers, guards, met every cycle to discuss, to vote, and to plan. It was slow, messy, and confusing, but it was real. And Eryxa, now just called Eryxa, sat among them, not as ruler, but as a voice. She was learning what it meant to be equal. Elias stood outside a hangar bay, arms crossed, watching a group of young drones practice flight drills. They weren't flying in formation like before. They moved freely, testing their wings, bumping into each other, laughing. Yes, laughing. Something the Kasari had never done. He let out a breath. It wasn't easy. Some of the Kasari still feared him. Others didn't understand him. A few hated the change. But most respected him because he didn't take control. He gave it back to them. Later that cycle, Eryxa walked beside Elias through a garden chamber. The plants were grown from Terran seeds he brought out of storage mixed with Kasari biosoil. Blue vines curled around green stalks. The air smelled alive. They grow fast, she said. So do people, Elias replied. They walked in silence for a while. Do you miss Earth? She asked. Sometimes, Elias said. But Earth isn't just a place. It's a spirit. We carry it with us. You carry fire. Sometimes fire is what burns down cages. She looked at him, thoughtful. You taught us how to feel. You could have ruled us instead. I don't want followers. I want allies. In the next few days, signals from outside the ship began to arrive. Other species, those once ruled by the Kasari, had seen the change. Small fleets approached the womb of silence, expecting war. Instead, they found peace. Elias stood in front of the ship's broadcast system and sent a message. This ship is no longer a weapon. It is no longer a prison. We offer peace. We offer a new path for the Kasari and for the galaxy. It was simple, honest. Some believed him, some didn't. But all of them listened. One day, a message came from the Terran Alliance. They had received reports that Elias Varkos was alive. They wanted to speak. They wanted him to return, a hero, a legend, the man who broke the hive. Elias sat alone for a long time holding the message. Eryxa found him like that. You could go home, she said. Maybe, he replied, but maybe this is my home now. You were made for war. I thought so too, but now I see. I was made for change. She nodded slowly. And what about us? You don't need me forever. I don't want a god. I want a friend. He looked at her, and for the first time something passed between them. Not control, not command, but trust. A quiet bond. Time moved forward. The Kasari Dominion became something new. No longer a single empire, but a network of free worlds, each guided by its own voice. The name Dominion was dropped. They simply called themselves the Swarm of Choice. Some species still feared them, some still hated them. But slowly, trust began to grow. Where fear once ruled, now stood diplomacy. Elias helped from the shadows. He trained new leaders. He taught strategy, survival, and, more importantly, independent thinking. He traveled from world to world, helping rebuild what had been broken by war. He refused medals. He refused titles. But stories of him spread. Of the ruthless human who made even an alien queen tremble, not because of rage, but because of truth. Years passed. One day, on a quiet planet covered in red grass and silver trees, a monument was built. It wasn't large or shiny, just a stone circle with two statues in the middle. One was Elias, the other was Arixa. No crowns, no weapons, just two figures standing side by side. An inscription was carved at the base in many languages. Freedom begins when fear ends. A small group of Kasari children walked past the monument one afternoon. One of them, a tiny flyer, pointed at the statues. "Is that the human?" she asked. "Yes," said the teacher. "He came when we were still sleeping. He showed us how to wake up." "Was he dangerous?" "Very, but only to those who used fear to rule." "Did the queen fight him?" "She did, and then she listened." The children stood silently for a moment, staring at the stone faces. Then one of them asked softly, "Where is he now?" The teacher smiled. "Where he always was, walking among the stars. And somewhere out there, on a small ship with no flag." Elias Varkos looked out at the stars with quiet eyes. Beside him stood Arixa, no longer a queen, but a traveler. Two once enemies, now allies, now friends, bound not by control or fear, but by respect, and the fire that lit a galaxy.